This is the Voices in Hyperspace, a podcast where friends get together and talk about sci-fi. We are currently watching Babylon 5, Season 3, Severed Dreams. I'm Captain Melisilo.
And I'm Legendary Black Lion. And for this episode, it's just us two. Sunday is taking a bit of a break, but she will be back with us soon. So this episode is actually really wild. This is peak Babylon 5. Lots of emotion, lots of drama. We're seeing a lot of our character stories mature in such a way that it puts everybody where they need to be, which is on one side. And I'm so excited about it.
I guess that's the severed dream aspect, because they're fully severed from the dream of a healthy universe, you know?
Yeah, because we learn about all the different conflicts that have been breaking out all over the galaxy, and we've seen bits and pieces of that throughout the season. Some of the non-aligned worlds were trying to protect themselves against the Centauri, and it just wasn't working out. And Londo was involved with obstructing anything that they could do to protect themselves.
Whining.
Right. And then now we're at a point where everybody's just concerned about themselves. The only alliances that are popping up seems to be with the shadows. But there are some other alliances that will be forming, and some of them begin in this episode. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Well, we got to see the Minbari fight the Earth Force again.
Considering the history that was established in the series, this is actually extremely scary and is used in such a dramatic way that you understand the implications.
Yeah. I mean, they brought it up enough times.
Right?
You can't talk about the Minbari or Earth without bringing up the fact that they were at war.
Yeah. There are some things that will be revealed soon, but there's just a couple of characters I want to point out. One is Delenn leading her own fleet of ships for this episode. That's super important and symbolic. We'll just let that linger in the air for a little bit. We'll remember that. We also get to see one of the background characters mature, and we get to see where they go. And the character that I'm talking about is Mars itself, not just a person, but the concept of the planet Mars. Throughout the season, we've seen them dealing with different conflicts. We've seen them getting bombed. We've seen them get bombed again. But Mars is standing in defiance to Earth.
I mean, they have been for a while, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. We get to see that people are finally paying attention to Jakar. They're listening to him. But he's also, he's being just very forward about who he is and what he wants. Yeah. He's become a fully redeemed character.
I mean, the potential was there the whole time. So it's not, they made it so it wasn't surprising that he would be redeemed. Because everything that he was fighting for and being kind of obnoxious about was justice. But he was just going about it the wrong way. So now he gets to be more mature about it, which he obviously had the potential for.
Yeah. And he becomes extremely instrumental to the plans of Babylon 5 characters. So I'm excited about that. You mentioned while we were preparing for this, one of the themes for the episode. What did you see? You said what you saw, and then I'll share what I saw.
Standing up for yourself, or stand up for what you wanted. We get to see everything that Babylon 5 was supposed to be fall apart and create. They created the opposite of what they were supposed to be working towards.
Yeah. Yep. So what you mean is Babylon 5 was originally, it was a diplomatic space. This is where all the different species that were formerly in conflict would come together and negotiate their ways to peace. But just like Ivanova said, Babylon 5 failed at that. And now they find themselves on the opposite side of I would say a conflict. I won't say a full out war, but a conflict with Earth Force.
It's basically a civil war.
Yeah. Civil war, civil conflict. I would say after this episode is straight up war. We'll get into it shortly. But what I saw, we got to see a lot of key characters and key elements in the universe stand up to their authority figures. They weren't just taking orders anymore. They weren't just letting stuff happen to them anymore. And they were like, we got to take matters in our own hands, and we're going to do it this way. And each of those ways are extremely risky and dangerous, but they felt that they absolutely had to do it.
Yeah.
We get to a new state of the forces in the galaxy. A lot of that is explored and explained, and everyone changes. Earth Force changes, the League worlds change, and Minbar and Babylon 5 itself changes. So we get to see all of that. Like, honestly, there is a lot in this episode. So much gets told. So I'm excited about it. We'll go ahead and jump into it.
Okay.
The episode opens up with our good old friend Londo Malari, and this is the comic relief before the storm. And it's wild because it's the very first thing you come to. Lando's in line trying to get on Babylon 5. Everything is moving slow. He's complaining about it. And
Hold again.
And he's blaming the Narn first. He's like, they're slow, they're lazy. You know, he's being very
Racist.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Narn security officer who is checking him in is calling him out on it. He's like, your card doesn't seem to work. And he's like, come on, man, you know who I am. And the Narn officer is like, I know who you are, but unfortunately, the computer does it. Maybe I'm just a little slow and dumb and lazy. However, to fix this problem, you can stand over there. It'll take no more than 3-4 standard hours. Just giving him the business.
Yeah, he was doing the TSA thing.
Yeah. And then Londo starts blaming the extra security and all these measures on the humans fighting each other. He's like, oh, this would have never happened if the humans didn't start fighting each other. Talk about never, ever taking responsibility. This is directly a result of his own personal actions. Mm-hmm. And he's complaining because it's inconveniencing him. He threw the entire galaxy into chaos, and he's mad that he has to stand in line.
That should be a small price for your status to go up so much.
Yeah. I know.
Like, you get to stand in line a little longer so that your name can be recognized by all of your, and possibly be king. Well, he will be.
Right. It's like being one of the orchestrators of 9/11 and then being mad you have to go through TSA. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, Londo's a terrorist, y'all. He's a horrible person. Meanwhile, the EAS Alexander with Major Ed Ryan, he's engaged in a battle with the Clark loyal cruiser known as the Clarktown. This is actually intense because we're still in the intro, and this is where Major Ryan and his first officer, who you said looks like he could pass for Dr. Franklin's brother. Yeah, we have another extremely handsome black man who's actually acting pretty well.
Mm-hmm. He was a soap opera actor as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he does that type of dramatic stuff typically.
It just makes me wish that they could have had a few more episodes or a couple of more characters get developed in this, because while you and I were prepping for it, it made me think, like, I wonder what else they could have done to develop these people. Mm-hmm. Especially the crew on Ryan's ship. So, yeah. But, we got what we got. Yeah. And so Ryan is basically trying to survive, and his number one is like, hey, look, this other ship, all of their forward interceptors are down. Give me the word and we will straight up attack them. And he's like, I really don't want to because we know them. But they take some shots and he's like, okay, go ahead. And they go for the shot and they destroy the ship. And we get this moment of reflection where Ryan is like, did you know the captain of the Clarkstown? He goes, no. He's like, I did. And he's talking about how they know each other's families. In every other conflict, we didn't know who we were killing. But this time we know exactly who we're killing. Mm-hmm. And he just looks extremely sad. He's like, we need to go. We need to get some repairs. And his number one was like, where are we going? He goes, we're going to Babylon 5. And the thing about it, he didn't say it in such a declarative way. He said it in an extremely, sad way. Like, he's lamenting, like, we only have one place that we can go.
Mm-hmm. And he knows that they're probably bringing this war to Babylon 5.
Yeah. And that's more humans to die in this conflict.
Yeah, and like he just reflected on knowing the guy that he just killed, is the crew, the captain, and he knows Sheridan, and he's bringing this conflict right to his doorstep.
Mm-hmm. I took a couple of notes. They knew that they were taking measures to kill other Earth Force captains. They don't like that. And kind of reflection in real world is like a lot of modern battles. We have these political ideologies, right? And I'm thinking like not shooting fighting battles, not anything violent, but just like the battle of ideologies. And
Right.
things are constantly escalating. And then when we get to the point where people start to die, there's always a discussion of one's humanity. So this is where we start to see the difference of the people involved, right? There are some who absolutely abhor the idea of killing, and they're, don't go to war no matter what. And then you have some people who are like, we got to go to war. We got to defend ourselves, but we hate the fact that we're killing people, right? And that's what Ryan is kind of reflecting. Then there are those who absolutely love the idea that they can finally take the gloves off and kill all their enemies. Those are the people that we don't like, because they never looked at us as human beings in the first place. They looked at us as obstacles, right?
Right.
And so you hear these arguments for in different places on this scale, but it just made me think Clark's people, with Clark and the authoritarian regime with Earth, they're like, you're just obstacles. We need to kill you. We need to bomb you. We need to blow up your ship. But you got people like Sheridan and Ryan who are like, why do we got to kill other humans? Can't we just talk this out?
Sheridan coming from an exploratory ship, but he was military. He did fight against them in Mbari.
Yeah.
But there are some people who literally join the military because they're paying them to fight people.
Yep.
And that's I guess they found the right place to go. But I mean, if you're a pacifist, I would think that's not a good idea to find a place for them.
And that's the thing too. American culture and people here in the West, we straight up promote and celebrate pacifists, and I think it's done in a way to diminish people's pursuit of freedom.
Mm.
Like, oh, you need to be like Martin Luther King and go nonviolence. They use nonviolence as a tactic. They didn't do it as like a central belief because they thought that nonviolence in all situations was the right way. No, they did it because it's like, we're going to highlight the inhumanity and how monstrous the opposition is, how monstrous the racists are.
Right.
And the thing is, the racists didn't care.
And even King said that this is a tactic that we can use unless it gets worse.
Right.
And at this point, it's a tactic that can do some damage without us having to risk too much. But he did believe in risking more. It's just never promoted, never taught.
Right.
Right.
Because the opposition wants you to think that you should always be nonviolent and that you should always be harmless. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, movements for freedom have always resulted in violent revolution. The American Revolution is one where it started out as a shooting war, and people was like, we are gonna protect ourselves, So I'm not gonna stick on that, but it's a really interesting thing to look at, because the quote unquote good guys here hate the fact that they're shooting on their own people. All right, so back on the station, Sheridan convenes a command staff meeting, and he's talking about the arrival of the Alexander. They know that they're coming, and they've been given like a standing order to report such ships that are fugitives and turn them over. He's like, look, we ain't doing that. He's like, what we're going to do is when they show up, we're going to cut all communications. We're going to render help to them, and hopefully we'll be able to find a way to help. One of the things is, what are they going to do about the Clark loyalists on the station? And they discuss different things about that, specifically how they're going to shut down lock down the station, and make sure that there's like no ISN. There's going to be, they have their private communication, but other than that, they're going to shut down all of the signals. And so we're moving quickly now. Lanier, he runs into Dr. Franklin. He's like, I need your help. What they do is they bring him down to the docking bay. There is Delenn and a wounded Minbari. They need to get him to MedLab quickly because he's been hanging out on the League Worlds, and he knows that something is going on. He has information about what they've actually been doing. They're like, how can we get him to Medbay without running into the Narns? We don't know who's loyal to us. And Jakar just appears like he does. And he's like, no worry. You don't know who's loyal, but I do. I will take care of everything. And he straight up picks up the Ranger. Delenn says, how far can you carry him? And he says, as far as you need me to. This made me think, we watched Jakar pick up like giant boulders of granite. So this dude is freakishly strong.
Yeah. That made me think of why the Centauri treat them the way they are. Because they basically enslave them to do the work that they don't want to do, and then call them stupid, and like they play all these mind games to gaslight them into submission so that they can use that brute strength to their advantage. You know, they were mining and stuff. They mined the whole planet because they're good.
They were doing hard labor, and then what they would do is they would murder and put on display the quote-unquote troublemakers. They did it in kind of like the lynching style that was seen in the South here in the United States. And it's just like, it breaks my heart that they're depicting it this way, but it's important because people have to realize this is what authoritarian governments do. Authoritarian systems do. You can't pretend that this was a good thing. You have to realize that this is evil.
Right. And that kind of makes me think about the, like you said about the peaceful protest, and how most studies show or history shows that peacefully trying to overcome oppression doesn't work. When the majority of the time oppression isn't violence, it's mental. Yes. So like it being peaceful necessarily doesn't work, or trying to appeal to their humanity doesn't work, because obviously they've proven that. But the manipulation of superiority and stuff, I think that everyone just goes about it the wrong way, because brute force isn't working and kindness isn't working. Is there a like spectrum?
Yeah.
And also the thought of like people joining the government, like when Black people like, I'm going to try to fix things from the inside or do what I can. I think that doesn't work because there's so many aspects that, yeah, it's helpful for there to be people on the inside, but until we're all in every aspect, nothing's going to work. You can't, it's like a clock with gears. You can't just replace one of the gears and think everything's going to start working differently.
Right, because it's still a clock that's going to do what a clock does.
Right.
Like joining the system to change the system from the inside, it doesn't work. What it does is the system changes you from the inside and the outside.
There's only one part that does work. Like
right.
All the parts have to work together. Yeah. You working by yourself doesn't work.
Correct.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Okay. So Sheridan and crew are watching the ISN report, and Mars has straight up rejected the martial law edict from President Clark. Our good friend, Lieutenant David Corwin, he alerts Sheridan that a ship is coming through the jump gate. And this is where Sheridan orders the comms to be cut off and informs personnel that there's a ship coming in and that they will not be following orders to capture it. And they're going to render aid. And he gives kind of a rousing speech about like, we're gonna be humans with our heads on straight about this whole thing until it's over. And he encourages his crew to stand united in the face of significant upcoming challenges. And again, this situation is reminding us that authoritarian regimes, they're the ones that cause the chaos. That's what Clark did. And then they offer a solution. And their solution is basically total control.
It's narcissism on a bigger scale.
Yeah. And what they try to do is say that them being in control is going to fix everything. Later on, we'll find out when Ryan explains, like, yeah, crime has been reduced to almost nothing, but that's because people are afraid to like leave their houses, what's really important here is Sheridan reminds the crew that they are still loyal to Earth. There's nothing crazy going on, but they need to remember our humanity got us into this situation. Our humanity is going to get us out of it. And I thought that was really important. He's like, we're humans. We're loyal to Earth. We're going to do this in a humane way. Back in Med Lab, the injured Minbari, he's telling Delenn what he learned from the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. What they were doing is they were aligning themselves with the shadows out of fear of conquest by the Centauri. They are going to war with their neighbors. They're forming little alliances, but the main alliance is with the shadows. It is, and it's out of fear. It's either be conquered by the other allies of the Centauri or be conquered by your neighbors.
Right.
And their belief is as long as they're protected by the shadows, they will not be defeated. And that's what I'm talking about.
They're the ones causing the chaos.
Yes. Delenn learns that the Great Council is choosing not to intervene because their response was other people's problems are not our matter. And that's a slap in the face. The Minbari, who are supposed to be kind of like the guardians of the galaxy, since they've been taken over by the warrior caste, they're just not interested.
Yeah, you would think the warrior caste would be ready to go fight.
And they're just like, nope, we're not doing it. Major Ryan is updating Captain Sheridan what's going on. Sheridan's like, what's up with Haig? And Ryan says, well, Haig was killed in our battle with the Clarkstown, and I had to take him in. So there's a funny story about this scene. So one of the outtakes, and I think it's on the DVD, the actor Bruce McGill, he's telling the actual reason why the character Haig, who is played by Robert Foxworthy, is not there. And that's because Robert Foxworthy was actually acting on Deep Space Nine when they were shooting this. And so in one of the outtakes, Sheridan's like, where's General Haig? And Bruce looks at the camera and goes, he's on Deep Space Nine.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And really what it is, it was a mistake. It was a scheduling mistake by Robert's agents. They got him. They basically double booked him, and he couldn't get out of his contract with Deep Space Nine. Which, I mean, tell me, which one would you do if he's already shot some episodes of Babylon 5, so he's forever in that universe,
right.
And now he's gonna be on Deep Space Nine. Yo,
yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
So they had him killed off screen, which also actually adds a lot of reality and drama to this, because like General Haig, he's kind of being set up to be like this freedom fighter and like this big support, like the Deus Ex Machina for Sheridan. And then when he needs him most, he's gone. Dude is dead. Didn't get to watch him die. Didn't get any like last words from him. Dude's just gone.
He gets to be a martyr.
There you go. Yep. He's gonna be one of the heroes that we honor for their sacrifice, right? Major Ryan shares news about President Clark's martial law coup, and he highlights how our Earth senators ran into hiding. We saw a little bit about that. There are shock troopers everywhere. That's a Nazi thing, sending what do they call them? Stormtroopers. That's literally what they were called.
Yeah, that's where he got it from.
And on the surface, everything is peaceful. Most people at home are accepting this authoritarian rule. Again, crime is reduced, but there's still fear. And Sheridan calls it the peace of the gun. So everybody's behaving because there's a gun pointed at them. And because of that force, they are going to be doing exactly what Clark wants them to do. I also have another point. There's a portion of the population that's like pro Clark. We see it now. There are people who are pro authoritarian. They want their strongman dictator character to run everything, and they think like, oh, that's gonna fix everything. And they always use the terms law and order because they want to punish people who don't do exactly what they want them to do. Which In this show, here comes Mars. They talk about there's hope because Mars has rejected martial law, and I'm just like, yes, that's the character I was telling you that matures. They rejected martial law, and if they rally enough support, there might be some pushback on Clark's forces. Then our good buddy Garibaldi speaks up. He's like, "What if they push back?" I'm like, "Shut up, Garibaldi."
But like earlier, Mars was talking about seceding from Earth even before this.
Oh yeah, there's a Free Mars movement that Lita was part of.
Yeah.
So in this episode, this is just more proof. Like, Earth is tripping. We need to be our own country, our own state. And so Major Ryan reveals that Clark has been strategically placing loyalists within Earth Alliance government and the military for over a year to suppress dissent. Sheridan receives alarming news that Clark loyal Star Furies are currently bombing Mars Dome, which that's what we get to see. There's people who are like, hey, there's women and children down here. And they're like, we don't care, dropping bombs. And again, we see this similar scenario to this day, like people bombing cities where there are women and children. And they don't have to, but they're doing it.
And it doesn't help their cause other than fear, I guess. And there's some people who just believe that fear is the best way to control people. It is an efficient way to control people. It is not the best way.
No, because you eventually run out of force.
Right. Eventually, they're going to stop fearing you. And it's like, well, what is the point if you're just going to keep attacking? Like,
right. When people are tired of being afraid, they get mad and they start punching you back in the face. When we get back, Delenn decides that she's going to go straight to the Great Council and speak to them about their indifference. Lanier's like, well, what if they don't receive you? And she says, they will receive me whether they like it or not. I don't mean to say this about Delenn, but she's about to Karen all over them.
It's like it's so weird because she's so together and peaceful, and like the first season, she's all about like peace and we're not like the warrior class, blah blah blah. But at the same time, she looks at Sheridan enduringly. In what is the word? She has this loving look at him when he does these crazy stuff. He's risked her life. He risked her life and everybody else's life in this expensive ship. And she's like, oh, he's so brave. And I guess she was really looking up to him because she decided she was going to be just as brave as him, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, yelling at some people is a step up, is a step closer to, blowing yourself up.
She's basically a firebrand. She's like, look, I got something to say. Y'all gonna listen. She leaves Lanier in charge, and she says, Lanier, you're in charge. Anything you do, I support. I'm like, holy crap, that's some trust, because Lanier could do some straight bullshit with that power. But he doesn't. He
don't get drunk.
Yeah. He's in love with her. We'll get an explanation about what that even means, but let's just remember Lanier is in love with her. And she also expresses gratitude to Jakar for his support, and it's like, finally someone is paying attention to him and recognizing him and appreciating him. As Delenn's transport exits through the jump gate, some Earth Force destroyers show up.
One was the Churchill, one was something I should remember because it's a town in my state.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Lexington.
Oh, okay. So the Churchill shows up, and this is captained by Sandra Hiroshi, and she brings urgent news for Ryan and Sheridan. And they said that the attacks will continue until Mars accepts martial law. So basically, they're going to bomb them into submission. The other anchor, Rick, which I'm sorry, they both look kind of funny. They remind me of Anchorman, by the way. Like, I don't know why, but Rick interrupts. He's like, "Look, I got to tell y'all some stuff. They won't let us tell y'all. There's some stuff for a long time that's been going on, and basically that Orion 7 and Proxima 3 have seceded from the Earth Alliance due to the Mars attacks and have declared independence. He attempts to broadcast more information about Clark's covert actions, but they basically yank him off the air. I guess there's a firefight going on in that building, and stuff is really going crazy. Not just trying, but they are forcefully controlling the media.
Forcefully with guns and bombs, apparently, because their whole place is falling apart.
Right.
It's like shooting. They do a lot more than shooting.
Right. Exactly. So Captain Hiroshi arrives on Babylon 5 to relay the news that Clark is sending elite loyalists to take control of Alliance colonies. And then they're going to be sending people down to Babylon 5. Due to Clark's actions, there are a lot of other colonies that are seceding. And they're sending, the Earth Force is sending the Agrippa and the Roanoke to capture Babylon 5. Other worlds won't intervene. So like the non-aligned worlds won't intervene because they're involved in their own conflicts, distracting them. And that's exactly what the Shadows want. It's like they want this chaos going on, and they don't want people to be able to like work together and help each other. This is kind of like one of those art of war strategies. You know, you got to keep your enemy off balance. And everywhere they look, when Babylon 5 is like, maybe we can ask this people for help, and they're like, no, we got our own things to help. We got our own issues to deal with. Hiroshi reveals that the Clark's orders to seize the station were issued before she arrived. So it was before a lot of this stuff was going on. They're like, we need to take control of Babylon 5. It was motivated by Sheridan's defiance against Nightwatch. So when that happened, when Sheridan was like, what you're doing is illegal, Clark and the regime was like, oh no, we can't have that. We can't have this smart person running the station. We need somebody we can mold.
Right. Well, that's what they thought they were getting in the first place.
Right.
They thought, oh, the Star Killer, he's a proud whatever. Human. He follows directions, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't actually know him.
Ryan was saying, like, maybe we should leave to take the heat off of you. But that's when Hiroshi was like, no, they were going on the way here anyway. What you see is Sheridan, he looks kind of destroyed right now. And he's really thinking about all the things that were being said. And he's like, I got a serious decision to make. Ryan and Hiroshi, they go to their ships and they leave the command staff to decide what they're going to do. And so they have to weigh Clark's desire to remove them against the safety of the 250,000 residents. And Sheridan invokes Delenn's vision that the station was supposed to be a beacon of hope. During his speech, he talks about how, like, if it was just us, you know, you pay your money, you take your risk, but we got to be together on this. What do we do? And that's when we get the characters to vote. He says, I promised Delenn that we would draw a line against the darkness no matter what the cost. Now we know the cost. And the cost is Babylon 5, 250,000 residents plus billions of other people depending on them. Franklin says, if we surrender, they will court-martial us, but if we fight and lose, they'll probably kill us.
So between a rock and a hard place.
Right. Yeah. and slowly, one by one, they're all like, we fight. And so Sheridan's like, all right, there's one more thing I got to do. All security personnel, including in arms, are put on high alert. Jakar, he says, this is where Sheridan's like, Jakar has kept every promise that we made. He's good with us. They put the 2 squadrons in rotations. Others are ready to deploy on short notice. Dr. Franklin is instructed to clear med lab for incoming casualties. They know what's about to go down. And then Ivanova is tasked with contacting Draw. And she's like, oh, do we need his help? He's like, no, I just need his holographic system. We need to keep like Draw kind of a secret.
Yeah, it's in the hole.
Yeah. So
not just me.
Right. So we quickly jump over to Delenn. She's basically given the business to an acolyte on the Great Council. He says, they will not speak to you. And she goes, okay, well then they will listen to me. I'm like, God.
You guys ain't nothing.
Which they didn't. She goes in there and just chews all of them out. She scorns their rejection of prophecy. She yells at them about like, okay, cool. the warrior cast ain't gonna do nothing. We still got the we still got the religious cast and the working cast. We got 2/3 of the members here. Let us do something about it. And she says, if you, the Great Council, are not gonna be doing anything, then fuck y'all. The the Great Council should be broken. And she yanks the staff out of the leader's hands and breaks it with their bare hands. Which I remember seeing that. I thought she like broke it over her knee. No, she just like snaps it in two. And then there's like some power discharge and stuff like that.
That stamp must have been a device of some sort.
Yeah.
Maybe they control the lights.
Yeah. In a couple episodes, that device does appear, and there is a good reason why it's there. We'll just talk about it later. Okay. There's foreshadowing, but I don't want to like spoil anything. Just know it becomes an important thing later.
Okay.
So she appeals to the council to join their fight against the shadows. There are 5 members that do join her. They're from the worker cast and the religious cast. Back on Babylon 5, Sheridan has a heart-to-heart with his father. And I thought this discussion was like great because it's the heart and soul of the episode. Mm-hmm. Sheridan is torn on what to do, and he's making all these preparations. He's going to go to battle with other humans. He's done it once before, but he was able to like not fire on them and pretend that his ship was destroyed. But now there's no tricks like that involved. And he talks to his dad, and he's they're catching up, but he's like, Dad, I got to do something. And his father's like, look, you need to remember what I told you. Never start a fight, but always finish it. He knows he has an important decision to make, but when push comes to shove, he will always make the right decision. I thought this was great. The conversation ends with Sheridan's father going, I know you got important things to do, so I'm going to just let you go and do them. And I'm just like, dang. So, because all of this stuff, like, Sheridan's heart really is in turmoil over potentially killing other humans in Earth Force. And his dad is reassuring him and affirming him, like, you have to do the right thing no matter what.
Yeah. I also felt like it's like, I trust you, so you need trust in yourself.
Yeah.
And that's so deep because some parents don't know how to do that. Oh,
yeah, true.
Like just that reassurance that he didn't even have to say, I believe in what your choice is or where you're leading toward. It's just like, I trust you. You're smart, right?
Yeah. And I think his dad also understands what's going on because he's back home on Earth and he sees what's going on.
And he used to be a diplomat.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So he understands this stuff really well.
Yeah. So back on Babylon 5, they're mobilizing. We get to see Garibaldi in his element. He's getting geared up and he's ready to bust some heads open. Mm-hmm. He got his personnel, including the Narn, armed with PVGs. They were in armor. The Star Furies start their patrol. Sheridan goes and uses the holographic system to announce that Babylon 5 is seceding from the Earth Force Alliance in response to the attacks on Mars and other violations of the Constitution, which are Clark dissolved the Senate, declared martial law, started bombing Mars. Sheridan urges non-essential personnel that they can stay in their quarters and offer safe passage to those who want to leave. They're going to endure until this whole thing is over. And then after that, Sheridan offers the CNC staff, he's like, look, before any of y'all violate any regs, you can go. You don't have to be with us. And one guy gets up and leave, and everybody's looking at him. And that's a moment where you have to realize, like, this is very human. You have to feel betrayed because these are the people you go to work with, like, all the time. And they're like, no, you're wrong. Or I support the despot. I support the dictator.
Right. We got a lot of that in real life recently.
Yeah. But then we highlight Lieutenant Corwin, and they're like, are you okay? And Corwin's like, I think I'm okay. And I'm just like, wow.
He looked scared, but he's like, he stood still, very scared, which is very realistic. It wasn't like, oh, suddenly we're being bombed by our own country, our own people, whatever, or attacked by our own people, and it is kind of sudden. And he's realistically scared, but at the same time standing his ground. And I was like, that looks so real. Like any other show probably would have been like, yes, I am ready. Like,
Right.
no. It's like, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah. Because they spent a couple of episodes teasing whether Corwin would be on their side or on Clark's side. And he was like just acting with his face. You could tell that he was torn. You know, he was conflicted about it.
That actor does that very well because he did it in that interview where they had one scared. And like, you can see his eyes going back to Ivana.
He's like, no, everybody likes everyone here. He's like, oh, wow.
He did that so well. That's his perfect role. What?
Yep. And this solidifies him being one of, with the Alliance and potentially important to the conspiracy of light. I'm not 100% sure. We'll find out. While they're walking, Ivanova requests to pilot a Star Fury, and Sheridan is like, no. And she's like, look, if we're going to do this, I got to be out there with the people. And he's like, all right.
Yeah, because what? That was it last episode? It was probably the episode before. She was like, I need to stay here with you. And he's like, no, I really need it. What's her name? Ambassador Delenn.
Yeah.
And, like, as soon as she doesn't want to be with that, he's like, now I need you.
No, Ivanova, I need you.
And that's a little bit of foreshadowing that I'm trying, but no.
Yeah. But I feel like you're right. They've been putting Ivanova in places, in positions where she's pretty much acting like the captain. And in fact, she ran Babylon 5 for like 3 months.
Before he got there.
Yeah. So she's essentially a captain, and she exhibits a little bit from Sinclair, a little bit from Sheridan, and she has her own like structured view of it too. I wish we could have seen a little bit more of her in latter seasons, but things happened. The ships come out of hyperspace, and the captain Dexter Smiths, he explains like, hey, we're here for you to surrender Babylon 5. Sheridan is like, nope, we declared independence, and what you're doing is illegal. Now, you don't have to fight us, but we'll fight back. And he's like, and he's like, no, we've been given orders to like board you and take everything over. What you talking about? And so Sheridan instructs that the squadrons go into battle, load up the defense grid, all that stuff. He's like, don't fire unless you're fired upon. And he's kind of echoing his father's advice, like, don't start the fight, but finish it. And so everything is set up for the big battle. Now, we get to see a ginormous space battle. And while we don't see this very often, we get to see how impressive the Earth Force ships are. These are giant, angular, like geometric shapes. And they have like the rotating section for their decks, for the fake gravity. But they are huge, and they're not moving fast, but they're shooting a lot. There's a lot of Star Furies out there. While they're shooting, they're locking down the station, closing the blast doors. People are being, the loyalists begin firing. The Alexander takes damage and approaches the loyalist ship to a close range. They start having breaching pods land on Babylon 5, and I thought this was crazy. Like, when you think of space battles, you think of Star Wars, and they essentially turned those into like dogfights in space. But in real life, real life. if you consider what space is like and what it would take to maneuver in space and even win a battle, those ships are giant. You're not going to take down a ship very easily. So like boarding pods and the way that the Star Furies move, the defense grid, all that stuff, there are like so many different moving parts that are involved. And I think that they depicted it very well. Garibaldi deploys his security forces on Brown. And like, I wrote on here, like, he's actually doing something. Like, this is Garibaldi. Because remember, he was in the war.
Yeah.
So that's his element. He's a soldier. He likes to fight.
Yeah. Basically, he's not just a cop because his father was a cop. A lot of people after what what was it, World War II or World War One, came back to America, and cop was one of the jobs that they could get, and it made sense to them because it was very similar to being in the military. So yeah. That's a continuation of that, I guess.
Yeah. The Narn fighters, not necessarily familiar with human tactics. This has kind of bothered me a lot, but it adds drama to it because the humans are like running off and trying to take cover, but you see like 5 or 6 Narn characters just take bolts and drop.
Maybe they're just used to the idea of being big and strong. Like they're the brutes, the melee, so the tanks. They're the tanks.
Yeah.
The tanks, though. But I mean, they tried.
They did try, and they're fearless, even though they're running like straight to death. It's a great battle, but it's very dramatic. The Star Furies are shooting around, and one of them takes damage and blows up and runs right into the TNC shield, and that discharges and it like hurts somebody. Sheridan redirects the defense shield to target the loyalist destroyers themselves. So they're not just sitting in defense. They're now switching to offense. They're like, okay, this holding back thing ain't working. We see that the Churchill suffers critical damage. Captain Hiroshi, instead of trying to like return back, she's like, nope, we're too damaged. We got one last thing that we can do. And so she orders the Churchill to ram right into the Roanoke. She destroys both ships. So Captain Hiroshi, rest in peace. We hardly knew you.
They just that I don't want to say what they did, but she has a very Japanese name. And she just ran her ship into the enemy.
Oh, Mel.
You can cut that out if you want.
No, I'm not. You just made me realize what was happening because I didn't put that together. But look, it was 1995, so I'm not gonna.
It happened already. People knew. Right?
Yeah. This show does like Japanese characters a lot.
Yeah,
I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave that
completely. Really see. Yeah, I was about to say something else too. They always show like, I haven't seen any males.
Not yet. Was that guy the guy that played Shang Tsung, is he Chinese?
Shang Tsung?
Yeah. Okay.
What do you mean?
He's a male.
Wait a minute. Which character
he
would play?
He played like he played like a security person. I think for like one episode or something like that.
That was very.
They're very.
Because I was thinking about someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They seem to have Japanese women on the show, and then other Asian characters tend to be male, but not a lot with speaking parts.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna harp on it. It's it is what it is. The Alexander and Babylon 5 focus on the Agrippa, which they cripple it, and they're like, hey, y'all are hurt. Why don't y'all stop, and then we can help you. And they're like, nope. They basically have to fire on it, and it blows up. Firefight is still going on in Brown Sector, which is crazy because, like, on a space station, you don't have this wide open space. It reminds me of Gears of War, how everything has to be like closed hallways and corridors. You have to stand behind cover. I think they did a really good depicting that. There was another thing that they did, which was they weren't shooting every single time. A lot of the shots started out when they were charging, but afterwards they were doing a lot of hand-to-hand combat. And I wonder if that's because they're on a station. Like, they don't want to cause enough damage to penetrate the hull and then like space everybody. So they're smacking people with the guns.
And like you said, there's not a lot of space to run around, and you're kind of up on top of each other already as it is.
Yeah.
So close combat would be the logical way to fight. You wouldn't run up to somebody and shoot them.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I feel like the choreography was done pretty well. Maybe they did that to distract us from them not having a ton of a budget to do a straight up shooting war in the station.
Yeah.
Um,
And also, they have to have charges for their guns, right? So
yeah.
they couldn't technically run out of ammo.
There's one ship remaining, which is on Babylon 5 side, and everybody's damaged. They're like, we don't, we're glad that we got them the way we did because we wouldn't have lasted much longer. Now more ships jump in, and they're like, oh crap, we're fighting under a lot of heavy firepower, and we don't know if we're gonna last. Then they detect a bunch of jump gates just opening right on Babylon 5. And out come 3 Minbari Charlene class warsh cruisers and the White Star, commanded by Delenn.
Mm-hmm.
She pops in, and they're like, "Hey, what you're doing is not right. We're handling this." And she's like, "Nope, Babylon 5 is under our protection, and actually, you should leave." She says, "I don't care what you do. There's only been one human to stop a Minbari cruiser. That dude's behind me. You're in front of me. So you should leave or you're going to be destroyed." And then that's when they're like, shit. And they leave.
I love how her threat was like, here are the facts.
Yeah.
Just straight up gave facts. It's like, here are the facts. You do what you want to do with it.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised about a couple of things too. Because remember, they were trying to keep the White Star a secret. The Earthship that was chasing them in the previous episode probably didn't get a good look at it, and they're like, we don't know what that is. Same thing with the Shadows. They didn't get a good look at it, and the Shadow ship that did was destroyed. So it makes me wonder, like, okay, we're going to reveal that we do have this other ship. So are they going to assume that it's a Minbari thing strictly now?
Well, it doesn't have any human engineering. It just has a human captain. So
right.
They just know it. Them implying that it's just a Minbari thing or a new Minbari ship doesn't really hurt the purpose of it.
Yeah. It just made me think. Oh, and I'll throw in one more little observation. The concept of the secret ship. I think that comes from when the B-2 bomber was revealed in the late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
We have the secret weapon that nobody's supposed to know about. And then all of a sudden you see a bunch of pictures of it and they're like, all right, we'll just show everybody. That I kind of feel like that's what I feel. That's what I feel like the White Star is. It's supposed to be kind of like a proxy for the stealth bomber. And we're supposed to be like, ooh, this new technology is great.
Is it a common thing in war? Like they create things not wanting the enemy to know that it exists until they're ready to use it.
Oh yeah,
it's in your hand. But that what you gave is a very recent example of it that we get to see, that the world got to see, because we got photos of it and not just people on the battle.
Yeah,
certainly being attacked. But
so in the aftermath of the fight, the security forces, they defeat the remaining Marines in Brown Sector. With this aftermath, we get to see a ton of bodies laid out. A lot of them are Narn, but the Narn are helping some of the humans get up and move around. We see Garibaldi. He has an injured ankle, and he's being assisted by Zach. And I know that Zach did throw in his allegiance with the Babylon 5 crew, but this shows reconciliation between Zach and Garibaldi.
Yeah.
So
in the last episode, he helped against them. So yeah, since that he stayed.
Yep. And so that shows that the battle for Babylon 5's independence concludes. They successfully hold their ground. After the battle, Sheridan and Ryan are reevaluating the whole situation, and they're talking about their next steps. Ryan's decision, he's going to be looking for other Alliance personnel to oppose Clark. to see who else is out there. Sheridan is going to take on all the Star Furies because the church, they lost to Churchill, and Ryan's ship took everything that they could take. Some of their docking bays are damaged, so they can't take any more, and so they're replacing what Sheridan lost with what the Churchill had. Yeah. Notably, Sheridan isn't wearing his jacket anymore. He wore it throughout the battle, but he doesn't have it on. And he says that he doesn't feel like he can wear it with a clear conscience until this whole thing is over. And that's a cool way to look at it because of the symbolism of what the uniform means to him, and what the whole thing is supposed to mean. Like, Earth Force is supposed to be the good guys, right? Sheridan is supposed to be the good guys, and he no longer aligns with what Earth Force is. That's just like Captain America.
Yeah.
At the end of Captain America Civil War, he threw down the shield, and then in Avengers Infinity War and in Endgame, he took off the star. He only wore the armor, but he didn't have like all the symbolism on it.
Yeah.
He was truly a nomad at that time. Anyway, Garibaldi reports in. He shows Sheridan a lot of people, primarily Night Watch members. They're all like getting off the station to return to Earth. So these are people who are loyal to Earth. He's like, yeah, y'all can go, free passage, but they have to be vigilant against like Night Watch members who are sticking around. Sheridan expressed his gratitude to Ambassador Delenn for her efforts to secure Minbari assistance, and they share a tender moment because she offers her hand to thank him and to congratulate him, and he shakes her hand, but then he turns her hand up and he kisses it. So they're still building on this story.
Yeah, and him saying that words feel inadequate to thank you for what you did. Like, just were the right words.
I don't know if I can say the right words, but I can still use these lips to show my gratitude. And listeners, I'm just going to let y'all make all the comments that you want with that statement. After that, Ivanova comes in and is like, Captain, I want to show you something. And so they walk out. The command staff is walking with him. They walk into the Zocalo. And they're looking around. When they zoom out, the Zocalo is full of officers. And they start a slow clap. They start a slow clap. And they are praising the arrival of Captain Sheridan and just like supporting his decision for cessation. And for just a few moments, they are celebrating being appreciated for protecting Babylon 5.
Yeah. Protecting their freedoms.
Yeah. And then the episode ends, which, wow, this was such an eventful episode. And I'm excited to know what happens next. Now, here's the thing. I've watched the next couple episodes. What they do is they slow it back down a little bit because there's still so much more story for them to tell. Yeah. And it makes me think, like, in this age of streaming, if this was on Netflix or Amazon, this would be the end of the season.
Oh, yeah, because the seasons are so much shorter now.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job of using all the other episodes to build up to this one. It didn't build up as dramatically as some of the newer shows would have done.
Yeah.
Now I'm just thinking about like Stranger Things, right, where there were so many little things that build up to the one big thing. So when the big thing happened and all this stuff is constantly happening, you know what's going on because you've been introduced to it all, and they invested you into it every step of the way. Yeah. And there was so much going on, but we were already familiar with everything. Maybe not so necessarily invested. They did a good job, but I don't think to think about the feelings that I got in like Stranger Things at the end of the season, where everything gets pulled together. You're not as invested in every little thing, because every little thing in Babylon 5 is connected to that one thing that you need to be invested in.
Yeah. And also, like, all of those other threads that were going on in the background, we got to see them all come together in this one episode. Because, I mean, we knew that there was going to be a direct confrontation between the Babylon 5 crew and Earth Force, and here it is. But seeing as how this is not the end of the season, that means there's some more about to go down that's very important. And so I know what it is. I know what it is. And it actually is, to me, it's exciting, but it's very dramatic. And remember, we're not just watching Babylon 5 versus Earth Force. This is Babylon 5, the conspiracy of light versus the shadows. So there's more going on in the Shadow War. I'm super excited what happens next. And yeah, I guess we'll end it here. Thank you all for joining us on this episode of Voices in Hyperspace. You can join us and continue the conversation on our Facebook page at Voices in Hyperspace. Go ahead and join that and continue the conversation. We're also on YouTube. Like, share, follow. We're on TikTok for now. And we're on Instagram. I got to get the Instagram rolling, but that's a good place to find us too. I'm Legendary Black Lion. I'm on all of those platforms, but Instagram is the place to be.
I'm Captain Mel Asylum. You can find me at melsrebellion.com, and you can find updates on whatever new I'm doing there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we will see you next time.